Welcome back to the Movie Draft House. I'm your host, Mark, joined by co-host Jeff.
What up, Mark? Are you creepy yet? Are you scared?
Ooh, I'm feeling a little bit spooky.
Anyway, this month's theme is our, what do you call it? Mount Rushmore. I hate calling it that because there's 5 of them, and the leprechaun is on it, of slasher villains. And this week, I decided to pick Jason Voorhees and the film Friday the 13th, The Final Chapter, which is the 4th installment in the Friday the 13th series. It stars Corey Feldman, as well as Eric Anderson, Julie Aronson, Kimberly Beck, Tom Everett, nobody else. It's essentially just Corey Feldman and Crispin Glover. Crispin Glover's in it.
Yeah, he makes an appearance. It's directed by Joseph Zito, and this is his first foray into the Jason Voorhees franchise. And his biggest claim to fame, I think, is he also directed the Chuck Norris starring film Missing in Action.
That's his big. Oh my gosh, 1, 2, 3.
Yeah.
He's got 10 films,
and he hasn't directed anything since like the early 2000s. So,
oh my gosh, it's like all direct-to-video action flicks. So this is that one has John Rhys Davies in it, but so this is his biggest film as far as notability.
Yeah,
he directed Invasion USA, another Chuck Norris film.
Yeah, so what led you to pick this Friday the 13th film?
A lot of people say it's the best one. Some people, it's kind of legendary for that as being one of the strongest ones. The others that people talk about are 2 and the original at points, but a lot of people really love 4. And it is the final chapter. They didn't make any more Friday the 13th after this, except that they never stopped making them ever.
Right.
They made, I think the thing is that they made one Friday 13th a year in the 80s. I think there might only be like 1 year in the 80s where a Friday the 13th movie didn't come out, which is insane. Like a movie a year.
Yeah.
That's crazy. I know we live in the age of Marvel where they pump 2 to 3 movies out a year, but still, in this day and age, is crazy to me anyway.
Yeah.
Plus, I'm a big Jason Voorhees fan. Jason Voorhees is my favorite slasher villain.
Yeah. So you had seen this before, I'm assuming.
Yeah, it's been a long, long time. So there are movies in the Friday the 13th franchise that I know pretty well. Friday the 13th Part 1, Jason Takes Manhattan, Freddy vs. Jason, Jason X. Like, there's some that I've seen a lot. And then this one, I don't think I've seen more than maybe once or twice, and it has been a long, long time because there was a lot I did not remember. So how about you?
I had never seen this one.
Have you seen any Jason films?
Yes, I've seen the original Jason.
The original Jason is Friday the 13th Part 2.
I've seen the one where his mom gets killed. I don't know.
Or Friday the 13th. That's the original. Yeah.
Yeah.
I really like the original. Some people say it's not that great because there's a lot of like people just hanging out in cabins not doing shit, but I like that one.
Well, and so I'd never seen this, and I watched it with my wife, and I was like, hey, have you ever seen this? She's like, no. She's not a big horror movie fan anyway, but the something I did like about this film is that it kind of exposition dumps at the beginning of the film of everything that's happened up to then, and I was like, okay, this is cool because there was no way I was going to watch 3 Friday the 13th films prior to this one, especially because they're so fucking old. Just wasn't gonna do it.
Come on,
just wasn't
man.
but I'm, as somebody that isn't a big Jason Voorhees fan. Like, I mean, I get it, an iconic villain. I'm just not. I'm not in, like, these movies just exist to me, right?
You're right.
I get it. They're a staple in horror and slasher cinema lore. I get it. He is this iconic character. And there's something to be said for all that. I really do appreciate a franchise like Friday the 13th or the Jason movies that kind of just live. They go on. They just kind of live decade to decade. Even though we haven't gotten a Jason Voorhees movie in 15 years.
I think that's about right. Man, that was a while ago.
Yeah,
They did that. I don't. They want to call it a reboot or a remake. 2009.
Yeah, 15 years ago.
And it's a good one, at least. Like, it was not a piece of shit, which I appreciate.
Yeah, so like I appreciate a franchise that can live through decades, even if it's reboots or remake, whatever it is because the character is iconic. So I do appreciate these films for that. Largely, I found this one boring up until the last 30 minutes, and I only have
I will
to
say,
compare
Mark,
to the first one, but
the booby counter was in full effect here.
The booby counter was in full effect, and everybody's very horny in this movie.
Very horny.
Even Corey Feldman, super
Corey
horny.
Feldman, very horny. I really like the scene where he's looking at the people across the way and bouncing in his bed. I felt that was extremely childlike, and very funny. And his mom sort of had this knowing look, like knowing he's awake. But
It was. I mean, that scene in particular was a bit weird for the film, but also not because, like, how old is he here in this film? Like 12.
Maybe even younger. Like,
yeah,
he's pretty young.
So I mean, I get it. He's fascinated by naked women. Cool. So was I. I still am. So like,
one day you'll get to see one. Don't worry.
Right. No, but like I just felt like there was a lot of just nothing happening through this film for the first hour.
Yeah.
And I was a bit disappointed in that, is because we're in the fourth Friday the 13th film, and and the film already told us that this motherfucker is alive.
Yeah.
And so I don't even think it was my expectations. I was looking forward to more Voorhees on film, on screen, and we didn't get it until the final 30 minutes. But like, it was the final 30 minutes that really made the film, is because I mean, it's just he's just fucking massacring everybody, and it takes place all in this house, and that's what I like too, is that instead of in the woods or in cabins. Even though he pops out of a lake, like he does every time, but I just like the last 30 minutes really kind of like had me come around on it.
Yeah. I did enjoy this one. I actually thought the characters were fairly well done. You always got to have good fodder, and I think the film had a lot of good fodder. I really like the guy who did the computer gag, where he's, let me look on my computer, and then he calls the guy a dead fuck or whatever, and Crispin Glover gets offended. I thought that the cast of characters was interesting enough that when they started getting bumped off, I cared a little more than I would in most slashers. And that's not to say I did a lot, because I know that they're all here just to get bumped off. But
right.
I thought the cast of fodder was pretty good. You had the twins. You had Crispin Glover, who's awesome in this movie. He's insane. And it's kind of a legendary Crispin Glover performance. So this is 84, so this predates his
Back to the Future, right?
Back to the Future defining role. But it's still really great. His dance is iconic. I was kind of wondering when I was watching it why it hadn't been put into Fortnite. Now, it might have. I haven't played Fortnite in what feels like a decade, and they might have put Crispin Glover's dance in there. I think they should if they haven't already.
It's just a bunch of flailing.
It's awesome. Like, it's how I would dance as a joke. Seriously, probably too. They would both look very similar. So I like the cast. I really like the guy he's watching that old porno, and he's just laughing his ass off.
Right.
Like, but what is he really laughing at? Like,
well, isn't he also? He's also getting high too. So
okay, yeah. So that makes a little more sense if he's stoned out of his mind.
right.
But he's kind of nuts. Teddy was his name. You want to give a kiss to Teddy? That guy sucked. But he was kind of entertaining. And
Well, it's just like everybody in this film, other than who's the main chick?
I think that's Trish.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah, you're right. Kimberly
There's a
Beck.
lot of blondes that just get murdered in this movie, and I can't
Yeah.
keep them all straight.
But I mean, Kimberly Beck as Trish is the protagonist essentially.
It's the final girl,
Yeah.
even though she survives along with her brother Tommy.
Right.
Now, I don't know if you know this, but Tommy appears not in the 5th installment, but the 6th. He comes back. Now, it is not Corey Feldman.
Corey Feldman, right.
Right. Which, that's one thing that this series has lacked is sort of a consistent hero. So, like in Chucky, Andy, there are movies without Andy, and we'll get to Chucky later, but Andy's pretty much like the consistent main character, and he shows up periodically.
Right.
But maybe Friday the 13th has... No, Friday the 13th has What's-Her-Face in it. She's in those. But anyway, this series really doesn't have that core protagonist, and which is fine because that's not what it's really about. But Tommy is as close as we get to having that.
Yeah. And like my lack of knowledge in this franchise, I did enjoy Kimberly Beck in that role as kind of the most competent, even though she does some
and the
weird
least horny.
right.
Yeah, like she was the least horny. Like she and Mom probably too. Her mom wasn't too horny. Did her mom die in this? Did I miss that?
Who was the mom?
Like I can't remember. Like because the whole
I don't think she died.
final scene, maybe Mom goes into town or something, but the whole final scene is just her, Trish, and Tommy in the house, and Mom's nowhere to be seen. So I may have missed something there.
No,
I don't remember her getting killed.
And then I didn't. Something else I didn't like is the guy who plays or the character of Rob.
Now is that the buff guy that
He's
was camping?
Yes, the camping guy, and he
he-
fixes the car and
Didn't do anything for me.
right.
Like, he had
But
no
he's
depth.
in the movie a ton, and like we're meant to believe, or at least I was, that he's going to serve a purpose. Like he's this kind of macho-esque guy.
He's the
that-
guy looking for his dead sister, who
Yes.
Jason may have killed in one of the previous films.
Right. And, he's kind of this, he saves them on the side of the road. Not saves them, but like, fixes the car. And like he's this competent, or we're meant to believe competent guy. And like he doesn't do anything. And then he gets fucking murdered like a little bitch. And like, I'm like,
like his death though, because he's just yelling, he's killing me. He's killing me, which made it pretty visceral. I thought it did a little bit more with that than violence would have him just
Sure.
realizing it's over for him.
I was disappointed
yeah,
that he didn't put up any type of fight.
No, he just went down there and got murdered. Yeah,
Right.
Like you thought he was going to do something, but leave it to the 9-year-old to actually fight back.
Right. I also thought Crispin Glover's death, I mean, even though it was cool, he got the fucking machete to the face, it was kind of unceremonious, is because he just died.
And the machete to the face has been done. Like, they did it. They even show you at the opening part, there's a guy in a wheelchair who catches machete face. And I was like, okay. So part of the problem is the era. Like, in the 80s, they were a lot more like, you know, controlling the ratings board or whoever over the violence, and they'd cut so much out. And I don't know if it was so much in this one, but I do know in a lot of these movies there's a lot of scenes that have been toned down.
Yeah.
And you can probably find unedited scenes on, you know, YouTube and stuff like that that show you the full amount of work that went into the gore and stuff. And it's kind of a bummer because that's why we tune into this stuff, is to see the special effects. So,
well, and you know, I did enjoy some of the deaths because it did actually show them. It showed, you know, it wasn't too gory, but it was like the actual stabbing or chopping or whatever.
Yeah.
But like, I mean, Jason's death was probably the best. And that's what, you know, that's what you come to see. You know, when the main villain gets the best death, that's the price of admission. And so I enjoyed the prosthetics you know, behind that scene. I wasn't prepared for his face, I guess. And so like it was good, like, but I mean, we'll get to it. But like, so what did you think of everything happening in the house? I mean, did you enjoy that?
Do you mean at the end or at the teenager's house, the quote unquote 20-something teenagers?
Yeah, no. I mean, just the final sequence.
I liked it. I liked that the lights were out. I didn't like, so, and like I said, I didn't remember too much of this, but I thought there was more to Tommy's transition into shaving his head and stuff like that. And I felt like that was the big part where I really thought the movie could have done more psychologically with Tommy to get him to that point of where he kind of understood Jason a little more. Because in 6, he's in a mental institution and stuff like that. And I seem to remember them doing better about that, but they really didn't, because he was just kind of a kid throughout most of the film. And then right at the end, he has this idea to shave his head. And I don't know what the whole Jason Don't You Remember is. Maybe he's trying to look like Jason, but why would Jason repeat? Why would, you know, Jason, oh, that's me. I'm here. I don't know. Like, it's one thing like in some of the other movies, like 2, where they're like, Jason, it's mommy. Mommy, put that down. You know, he gets confused. Yeah. So I guess they've established that Jason's not exactly bright. He's sort of pretty stupid, to be honest.
Which is why, like, I just, yeah, I get it. He's this whole, you know, mammoth guy. And he largely preys on females, even though, you know, there's a number
of these dudes.
It's
like, well, actually, well, no, because then the twins show up. Because I remember when the car came through at the beginning, and it's 2 women and 4 dudes, that I'm like, oh, usually the ratio's the other way around. And then the twins show up, and it's like, oh, okay, there you go. Now we have even.
The you know, I thought the whole Corey Feldman shaving his head at that moment was weird, is because like his sister's running for her life downstairs.
Help me. He's like, give me a second.
And he's like, fucking bitch, I'm shaving my head.
Just give me a minute.
And I'm like, what the fuck is he doing? I just thought it was a weird kind of choice in the writing to like have him do that in the moment.
Yeah.
Kind of like, oh, this is...
They should have been humming. Doobie, doobie, doo. Help me.
It would have been better if he had like the the Kevin McAllister towel around his waist.
And then put the aftershave on his head. Also, it'd have been great if after all this shaving he goes downstairs and Jason just immediately decapitates him and it doesn't work at all. I think that would have been funny.
That would have been fun. It would have been good. It would have been
it would have been like, oh well, you can't outsmart him, I guess.
And then for whatever reason, Corey Feldman had time to apply eyeshadow.
Yeah, I didn't see. Again, I think had this been a more. So we're going to talk about Scream next week, but like in Scream 1, by the end of that, Sidney Prescott's been through a lot.
Yeah.
Right? And in this movie, I don't feel like Tommy's been through that much yet.
Right. No, and honestly, he hasn't.
Like he's barely interacted with Jason at all.
Right.
Right? He's been in the house. He's been kind of alone. And so for him to have the psychological downturn, I would have liked to have seen more work on that, but
yeah,
he really doesn't ever interact with him until the very end of the film.
And that's, and that's kind of where, the disconnect for me happens, is that I'm like, okay, I get it. He's trying to maybe look like young Jason. I don't know.
I think that's what he's going for, but that's a weird. Again, they established in previous films that Jason's not exactly smart.
Right. Did he think he was looking in a mirror and he got like a dog gets in a mirror and he's like, wait, who the fuck are you?
And also, he's had severe head trauma, Jason has at this point, because he's already had like one axe removed from his forehead from 3. That they do that, I think, at the beginning of this one. I don't really remember. But,
yeah.
And so this is the last Friday the 13th where he's not zombie Jason. So the next movie doesn't have Jason at all. It's someone else wearing the hockey mask.
Right.
And people hate it. And then 6 is Jason Lives, where he gets electrocuted a la Frankenstein's monster and comes back and he's zombie ridden and he's unstoppable. And it's kind of the Jason I grew up with.
Yeah.
As opposed to little boy Jason that's lived in a lake for 20 years. I don't know. I prefer zombie Jason just in general.
It's these movies, and maybe they didn't start out this way, but of course they got to it. Is this where there was no rhyme or reason to why this thing can't be killed, but
yeah.
I wish we had gotten more Jason throughout the film in this one rather than just at the end. I get it. You want to establish, these characters somewhat matter, and you want to, you want the audience to kind of become familiar with them and get attached a little bit. But
bump off the 2 people at the or the morgue,
right,
or hospital or whatever that is.
And
then there's the lady who's hitchhiking.
Yeah.
And she just gets killed randomly.
Yeah.
That wasn't very good. I thought the guy in the hospital was pretty good because you got to see his head turn all the way around. But some of this stuff is pretty tame off-screen kills. And, it's kind of why I'm like, man, I wish they'd start making these Friday the 13th movies again, because the rating system is, you could fit a lot of shit in an R rating nowadays.
Oh yeah. I mean, all of this could be redone on screen and it would be like another run of the mill R rated film.
It's a little light R in today's standards.
Yeah. And honestly, I really believe this film only got an R is because of all the tits.
Well, and again, the standard was different. So I think the violence was part of it too. But there were, this I think might be, and I haven't watched them all in recent memory, but this feels like the most boobtastic Jason film that I can think of.
Yeah.
It's pretty consistent. Like, like there's the skinny dipping scene and there's sex scenes and all of that stuff. So it's fairly consistent with the amount of boobage you get. So there's plenty of titillation.
There is plenty of titillation. Thank you for using that word.
I'm pretty sure that that's like if you look up, what's the word for origins of words? Damn, there's a word for it, and it's a good word that I don't
History.
know. But no, I'll look it up in a minute. But yeah, I'm pretty sure whoever came up with titillation was giggling to themselves.
Was looking at a pair of tits.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't know what else there is to say. I mean, the
Etymology is the word I was looking for. Etymology, the study of words.
Got you. I mean, the end of the film is Corey Feldman looking into the camera, kind of crazy-eyed.
I like. What were they doing there? I guess like he's going to be the new Jason is what they teased.
Yeah, that's what I gathered.
Again, because he didn't like the closest we got is when Jason was still moving. He does what you're supposed to do, right? He just keeps hacking. And he's yelling "die," and it kind of scares Trish. And I think that's a pretty good ending. I honestly kind of think it should have ended there, but they had to have this. Now, I don't think had Nightmare on Elm Street come out yet. Let me check. 84. So I don't know, because this ending kind of felt Elm Street like to me, which give it or take it. But I just. I didn't need the hug and then the look into the camera.
Yeah.
I kind of felt like leaving it on the die actually probably would have been pretty good, but
no, it's just I mean, I get it. You're establishing future reference, but I didn't get enough of Corey Feldman either to believe that he's all of a sudden psychotic, other than him shaving his head and doing the thing at the end.
But I felt like even when he was shaving his head, it was just him giving something a go.
Right.
And it wasn't out of a mental breakdown. Like they show that he's this like talented puppeteer and makes these masks that are like Hollywood grade masks and shit. Which is pretty hilarious. Like, but I don't know. I just think the character needed more work.
Sure, and that's where I'm at. Is that the characters were meant to root for, I guess. Don't get as much fleshing out, as it's an hour and a half film, so which I appreciate. I very much appreciate this film. Being only 90 minutes long, but at the same time, if your film's going to be 90 minutes and it's a Friday the 13th movie, I need more fucking Jason. I just need if your film's only going to be 90 minutes, I just need hack and slash throughout. And we didn't really get that, and so that's why I was a little bit disappointed. I don't know,
but I think they try to offset that with nudity. Right, you're either getting that or someone is swimming in the nude.
Right, and it's that's fine. I'm not gonna ever be disappointed because some naked women are on the screen, but I do think that by the fourth film in this franchise, we should just be Jason all the time.
Yeah, and I think Freddy versus Jason's kind of closer to that, but all of these movies do have that setup at the beginning where they're establishing the characters, and that usually takes 20 minutes.
Right.
And that's pretty normal for this sort of thing. So
yeah. So anyways, do you recommend this one?
I'm not. And even in the context of Jason movies, I'm not sure why this one is sort of legendary. Like, the story isn't that special. The characters are all right, but I mean, but it is still Freddy, or not Freddy. God, why do I have Freddy on the brain? Maybe because he's omitted this month. But Jason is still very Jason-y, but again, I'm more of a zombie Jason guy. That was my era. So, but at the same time, if you're a fan of this stuff, you're not going to hate it. It's still a good time.
Yeah. I'm not going to recommend it either, even though I did come around on it by the end of the film. I really needed more from this character of Jason in this fourth film. The last 30 minutes really are a good time. But and there's a lot of slow motion, like throwing out of windows and falling
and
to the
there's
ground.
times where they shouldn't, because there was one time where one of the characters got thrown out of the window, and you could tell it was a man. Like a woman got thrown out of the window, and then it was a man in Spanx. And I was like, oh, okay. Like, maybe don't slow that down.
Right.
And, like, linger on it.
And it just, I mean, I agree. At the end, by the end of the film, you're likely having a good time. I just there's a number of things I hear that I didn't like, and it's just not enough to get me to recommend it. So, Jeff, what are we watching next week?
Well, next week is a star-studded event. We are going to watch a Scream 2. As Ghostface is your nominee for the Mount Rushmore of slasher villains, one that I particularly agree with. I love Scream movies.
Yeah. Ghostface is, I mean, he is an iconic movie character.
Despite being
right.
Like, no one's ever been the character twice.
And that's what I appreciate about these movies, is that you can create any story with any characters, and if they put on the mask, iconic.
Yeah. And this is your personal favorite, so
it is.
It'll be fun to revisit. I'm probably going to rewatch the first one, although I have it memorized pretty much.
I'm going to as well, because it's been a little bit since I've seen the first one.
I love the first one; it's so good. But the second one, I remember it coming out and being sort of. We'll get into it next week. But anyway, yeah, we're watching Scream 2. It stars everybody. I mean, Nev Campbell, Courtney Cox, David Arquette, Jada Pinkett Smith, Omar Epps, Heather Graham, Jamie Kennedy, Liev Schreiber.
If you were anybody in the 90s, you're in this film.
You're in Scream. Great.
However, once you get your brain around, we're gonna wrap. We're going to review Scream 2. You can also hit the subscribe button if you're watching on YouTube, so you don't miss any future content right here on a podcast. And if you want to follow the podcast on all your favorite social media platforms, we're at Movie Draft House. You can find us on Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, right here on YouTube. Give us a like, follow, and a subscribe. If you can't find Jeff anywhere, he doesn't exist
can't be
anymore.
Found. I'm on Reddit, but I'm not going to tell you how to find me there. So,
do you have your own subreddit?
Yeah, r/diarrhea.
There's probably there's a subreddit for that.
There almost certainly is. I don't know if that's the case or not, but there has to be, right?
Right.
Anyway, you can find Mark on Twitter though. He's there. You can find him at I Heard You Liked. And ask him. I don't know. I got nothing. I have no creativity. We're recording at a different time of day than we normally do.
It's fine.
And it's ruined me.
I'm sorry.
It's not your fault. I don't mind.
Anyways, make sure you're catching the podcast as it releases weekly on Thursday, every Thursday, on your favorite podcast streaming platform. And join us next week as we review Scream 2. Jeff, any final words?
Stay out of the... Don't have sex in the woods.
Or in a lake, like on top of a lake.
Yeah, in a lake specifically right now. Why would you
jerk.
skinny dip in this lake?
Fuck
no. Wouldn't you be worried about something swimming in your penis?
I'd be worried about getting murdered by fucking Jason Voorhees.
I wasn't worried about that. It was something swimming in my penis.